Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positive vibes here on the show, and I've got a very special guest with me today. She is a former IWF Ladies Champion, former New England Pro Wrestling Women's Champion, also was inducted into the Cauliflower Alley Club. The one and only Brittany Brown is with me today. Welcome, Brittany, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, it's my pleasure. So, are you from New England originally?
Yes, I'm from Scituate, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So describe that kind of area so the people that are listening or watching to this may not know
Sure.
about it.
That is 30 miles from Boston, 30 miles from the Cape. So right smack in between Boston and the Cape. And it's a coastal town. There's 5 beaches, a very small town. And it pretty much doubles in size over the summer. A lot of summer people there.
I'd imagine it's very warm as it gets into spring and into the summertime.
Well, being on the coast in New England, it's cooler on the coast. So, inland, I've moved away from there. 26 years ago, I moved, and I'm not on the coast anymore. But whenever I look at the temperature here, and then I punch in Scituate, it's like 8, 10 degrees cooler in Scituate. So it's actually really, really nice there. The summers are beautiful.
Yeah, I've got family up there, so I've been
Cool.
I've been down there several times. So it's
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful place, incredible. So let's talk about wrestling. Were you
Sure.
a fan growing up? Is that something you enjoyed watching as a kid?
I did. Yeah. My father and I used to watch it all the time. We loved it. And it was back, when I was real, real young. We saw like the Grand Wizard, the fabulous Moolah, Jesse Ventura, and then Hulk Hogan came along, and Snooker and Morocco, the good old days, so to speak.
Yeah, this was like around like the late 70s, early 80s, right in the cusp of that golden era that a lot of
Great
fans
stuff.
refer to. Yeah, with the whole rock and wrestling connection.
Absolutely.
That's amazing though. And really a lot of people don't really realize the New England area is just an historic uh place for professional wrestling. The
Definitely.
Northeast, lots of greats have come from there. Lots of indie promotions have been thriving still to this day.
Yes.
But that's just so amazing how um, when you think about New England, you don't really think of wrestling, but there's a hub. There's a market for it. So it's
Definitely.
amazing.
Definitely. And I wish as a child, I wish I knew anything at all about independent wrestling. I didn't know there was such a thing as a child. And I found out that in North Attleboro, Mass, there was a place called Jack Witchy's. And I had absolutely no idea it was there. And a whole bunch of my friends from Kowalski's all knew about it, and I didn't. I missed out on a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you'd be surprised at the growth and all the different kinds of places that people can go watch wrestling. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing now. For kids today, it's absolutely amazing. Not only can you catch it on TV multiple times a week, but you can go down the street and you probably have to choose from, within an hour of your house, there's probably 15 shows on a weekend, maybe. And that was just unheard of when I was
It
a kid.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it was. So growing up, you were fans of Hogan and Snuka and all these different people. Who were some of like your favorites, like your absolute favorites to watch?
So my absolute favorite was the fabulous Moolah. And that was because she was such a mean person. with those $ sunglasses she wore with the diamonds in them. And just it was just amazing to me. Because it was a woman, you know. So when you're a little girl, you're looking up to someone going, wow, she's amazing. But she's so mean, you know. And of course, I didn't know the term she's a heel back then. I just knew she was like, you know, wicked sarcastic, and she was just the best. So she was my favorite.
And she wore like all these different outfits too, like the glittery
Yeah,
jackets and like you said, the sunglasses. So definitely was a star. Um,
absolutely. And she was around for so long.
yeah, she was, gosh, like even into the 2000s, is, you know,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, fabulous Moolah. It wrestled all over the world. And where was the point where you said, I gotta go get training? This is what I want to do for a living,
Well, you know,
for a
it's
career.
funny. I saw an ad in a local newspaper. It was called the Patriot Ledger. I think it's still out. And it was an ad for somebody to train wrestlers. And I looked at it, I think I was around 19 or 20 at the time. I looked at it and I said, you're kidding. How cool is that? That's local, you know? So I contacted the guy that did the ad. And unfortunately, it ended up being a scam. Luckily, I didn't give him any money. And luckily, my father went with me to meet him. And once he saw that I had a parent with me, he didn't show up. He was actually there, but
Mhm.
he didn't show up because he saw that I had a man with me, you know, and I'm sure he knew it was my father. So I ended up, I kind of got the bug from that, and I was kind of angry that that happened. So somehow, and I don't remember how, but I found out the fabulous Moolah's real name, and I found out the city and state she lived in. So back then, I actually called 411, and she had a listed phone number, and I called her, and we exchanged mailing addresses, and we wrote to each other, talked a couple times on the phone, and then I came down to Columbia, South Carolina. My dad went with me. Donna Cristianello picked us up at the airport, and that's when I decided I'm coming here.
So you went down to the training center. What can you tell me when you first walked in?
Um, I don't know if it's what I expected or not because I didn't really expect. I didn't know what to expect, I guess. I had never seen another training center, so I didn't know, but it was very nice. You know, her property was beautiful. There was a whole bunch of little cottages on it where the girls all stayed, her regular girls that lived there. I flew down every weekend. I flew down every Friday night after work, and then I flew home Sunday night because I had a day job, obviously. And this was wrestling to me was not something I was looking to do for a day job. It was just something I was looking to do on the weekends. So I did that, and it was brutal at first. On my body, it was brutal. Um, I woke up the next day from my first day of training. I woke up the next day. I literally could not get out of bed without grabbing the headboard, gritting my teeth with tears rolling down my face and having to go to training that day. I was like, how am I going to go to work on Monday? It was awful, but you know, you get used to it. Obviously, your body's not used to, you know, being slammed 8 million times and everything that we had to do over and over again, but it was great training. It was I learned to protect myself, protect others, and I learned the right way. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty intense. They put you through this regimen, and like you said, you have to condition your body and prepare
Right.
for all these different things. Otherwise, don't show up. And
Exactly.
yeah, so
Luckily, at the beginning, the airfares were so cheap that I was able to fly down every weekend. But then all of a sudden, something happened to the airfares where they tripled. And here I am, you know, 20, 21 years old now, and can't afford that. You know, I live on my own. I don't live with my parents. I live on my own, pay my own rent and my car insurance and all that good stuff that we all do. I can't afford 300 and something dollars every weekend, right? So I was at the mechanics shop having my Mustang, not the mechanics, the body shop, having some body work done on my Mustang. And I saw this guy and he saw me. Our eyes locked at the same time because we were the only people there waiting for the shop to open. He was at a little tiny Porsche and I was in like a hot rod Mustang. When the body man showed up to unlock the door, we both got out of our cars and he was a big, tall guy. He looked over at me and he saw how tall I was because I'm over 6 feet. And he said, "Wow, look at you. You could be a professional wrestler." And I went, "Huh?" And I'm thinking, how does this guy know me? He didn't know me and I didn't know him, but he was Tony Santos Jr. And he was there getting Misty Blue Sims Porsche fixed for her.
Hmm.
And I said to him, "How did you know I was a wrestler?" And he said, "I didn't. I just said you could be because of your height." And I was just like, what is going on here? Right. Come to find out, he was being honest. That's the only reason he said it. So I told him that I was going to Moolah's and that the airfares tripled and I'm going to look for something around here. And he said, "Well, let me introduce myself. And I want to take you to Kowalski's." So that's how I ended up at Kowalski's, where I finished up my training. And I ended up being Walter's champ for like 13 years, IWF ladies champ. And I ended up in a very, very good place being trained by two of the best people that, I mean, I couldn't ask for anything better. Two top of their game pros that, and I'll tell you, if anyone tells you that women's training is less torture than men's, it's not true. We get trained the exact same way. And no excuses given. You can't look at Walter Kowalski and say, "I'm a female, I can't do that." No, nope. You get treated exactly the same, and the exact same is expected of you. So that's how it all came about. And then I was nowhere near ready for my first match. But the place where Walter rented from, where he had his ring, that guy was he ran the USWF. His name was Richard Burns. He had a ladies champion by the name of Jamie West, and she had a title shot that night. She had the belt, and the other girl wasn't going to be able to make it. So they asked me, and I said, I'm not ready. I haven't had any matches. And they're like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll walk you through it. It'll be like a 4-minute match." So that was my first match, and my name was Sheena the Jungle Queen.
Oh,
And I
wow.
had face paint on and a leopard print full body unitard, and that was my first match.
Who came up with that name?
Jamie, because apparently she had done that before, and Jamie and I were very close in body size and body type. We both had blonde hair. We were both right around 6 feet. We were both thin. So it was almost like to prove that Jamie wasn't Sheena the Jungle Queen if people thought she was. Because here she is now fighting her. So she wasn't Sheena the Jungle Queen.
So they kind of recycled the gimmick.
So to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
How long did you have that gimmick?
Oh, I only did that a couple of times. Just basically for Richards to fight Jamie. And then of course, when I got down the road and I became, a different champion, they didn't want me to do jobs, obviously, for other promotions. So if I had to do a job, I would be, Sheena the Jungle Queen.
Okay.
So I probably only did it 3 or 4 times.
So they had you kind of transition out of that, and they put you against several different opponents. And who were some of the favorites that you got to work with over the course of your career during that point?
Oh, I was really lucky. I worked with so many great girls. But my 2 all-time favorites were Brandy Alexander and Rosebud, also known as Shelley Francis in the LPWA. So those were my two favorites. It was just so smooth with both of them. And we became very, very good friends also. But I worked with so many greats. I worked with Heidi Lee Morgan, Judy Martin, Leilani Kai, um, I got everybody, Rusty the Fox Thomas, Ivory, Candy Divine. I worked with all of them, and I had great experiences, a lot of great experience.
Did you ever get to travel any as well outside of New England?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was working constantly. I went from Wisconsin to California to Vegas. I wrestled in England. I mean, just everywhere. We were either on the road all day or flights all weekend. And then I'd save my vacation time up to be able to go down like to LPWA and do TV for like 4 or 5 days.
We'll kind of switch gears now. We'll talk about the stuff you've done as far as charity work or community service work is concerned. Tell me about some of the organizations that you've partnered up with over the years.
So, I mean, my favorite thing is at charity. That is my favorite thing. And a friend of mine who was also in the wrestling business, Lisa the Adjuster. I really loved. She ran Save Our Strays in Florida, and also when she moved to Vermont, she had that. So that was something I really, really like. I really love at charities, and I would volunteer, but I have to stop myself from volunteering to a local charity because I know what I would do. I would get so attached to the animals that I'd have to bring them home. And I can't because I live in a townhouse and you're only allowed to have a certain number of dogs and cats. And right now I have one dog and one cat, and you're only allowed to have one dog and two cats.
Hmm.
So if there's 15 at the shelter, there's no way I'm leaving them when I go home at night. So I have to not go.
I get,
So I do other things, and I really like St. Jude's. I'm involved in that. Involved in a lot with the cancer. My aunt died of breast cancer, so I'm very involved in that. Um, you know, that's my favorite though, my absolute favorite, because I feel so bad for them. There's another one out of New York called 20 Paws Rescue. Um, my esthetician actually runs it, and she told me all about it from like day one on. So I try to support that as well. Um, and my supporting, unfortunately, is not in person for just that reason that I told you about, because I can't leave them. I'm going to get attached and I can't leave them. So I do bring to my local shelters at Christmas time. I do bring food and toys and treats for the cats and dogs, and I call them, ahead of time to find out what animals are there at the time, so I know what to bring them. And I have been doing that for several years.
oh wow, that's pretty nice. And you mentioned
Yeah.
you had a dog and a cat at home. Tell me about your pets.
Oh, my dog, my God. I call my dog the mayor in my town because he literally, and I don't know what it is about him. He's a mixed breed, he's a beagle mix, but people where I live, they stop their cars to get out and pet my dog while I'm walking him. It's just, I don't know the charisma this dog has, but even people with allergies go, oh, I can't walk past Archie. I can't drive past Archie. I know I have allergies and I'm going to pay for this, but I have to pet him. So he has this weird, like, fan club in this town.
Hmm.
And my cat, it's the first cat I've ever owned. I've had her for 12 years. And I call her the exorcist because she's
Hmm.
that angry. So I guess apparently she's got a little Brittany Brown in her. So, but she is not a friendly cat. She's 18 now, and I went to New Hampshire to pick her up from the New Hampshire ASPCA, and they told me she never bit anyone. She loves dogs, loves people. Couldn't have been more the opposite. I got
Oh,
bit on day one, Hated I had 2 dogs at the time back when they used to allow 2 dogs here, and they were grandfathered in. She paid no attention to them if they walked past her. She growls and hisses. Oh my God. But she's plugging along. She's got diabetes now. And even though she is not the friendliest cat around, I'm still glad I rescued her.
Yeah, I mean, you've had her for a long time. I hope everything is okay, turns out okay with her.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, you're welcome. As we've been talking about this, you're very passionate about pet charities, helping them out. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
Um, I had a dog. My first dog I got when I was 15, and I was actually working a summer job for the Situate pet. It was actually the animal control officer. I used to drive with her. I had a uniform and I used to drive with her. And that's when I kind of realized what a problem it was. I don't think I realized it till then with stray dogs and aggressive dogs. We had to like trap some aggressive dogs.
Hmm.
And I learned from there at we had a day, like an adoption day in Situate Harbor once. And I was, like I said, 15 years old. And the first dog that I met, I don't know what it was, but we looked at each other and we knew we were going to be each other's. And I brought him home without permission. My mother went through the roof, but I was allowed to keep him. And he lived for 4 more years. And I was devastated,
Oh, no.
absolutely devastated when he passed away. He wasn't sick or anything. It was so sad. And by that time, we were living on our own. It was just me and him in an apartment a couple of towns away from Situate. And I was just so devastated. It took me, I'm going to say 18 more years before I ever got another dog. I was grieving him so bad. And I just knew, like, from that point on, I saw in their eyes how desperate these animals were to have a loving home. So I just became a big pet person then.
Yeah. Well, that's very sweet. You definitely have a passion for pets and caring for them, and I do agree with you. I think pets that are, they don't have a home, they deserve a home to be in, and it's good to see that you were able to take care of them and do what you needed to do. So, Brittany, I just want to say thank you for coming on Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my listeners and viewers. Uh, where can people find you on social media, or if they want to get in touch with you about anything?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I am very much on Facebook. I have a Twitter account. I don't really go on there much. But if anyone wants to reach me, the best way, the easiest way is on Facebook. I'm on there daily.
All right. Well, thank you again, and you're more than welcome to come back on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. All right. Take care.
Okay, you too.
All right. Bye bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.